Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let's hope Chris's microphone is working this time. so, so I want to welcome you to this very interesting topic, which is about one of the biggest mysteries of the world, which is that money is directly related to your consciousness. And if that were true, then we definitely need to know what that means. And I myself have spent many years studying this subject because I was so paralyzed by the fear of not having money and wanting to do the spiritual work. And when I found out that spirituality, according to certain teachers, was directly related to our consciousness, I delved in every course, every training, every book that there was out there. And Danny is, I think, the same type of person. We pre-interviewed him. Danny was actually in the financial market since he was 8, bought his first shares when he was 8. And although he looks young, it still means that he has like decades, several decades of experience in the financial markets. And we've been introduced to Danny through Chris, who I studied with when I investigated the release technique, which then at the time when I was studying, when I really wanted to hack consciousness and money and abundance, I found out that the release technique had a lot of testimonials of people that actually were creating the financial abundance, that there was a formula to it. I went to retreats. I actually did my due diligence. I listened. I really wanted to make sure that all the testimonials on the live calls weren't fake people. I went to the retreats, many retreats. I also met Danny there, and I actually saw people change their lives around with releasing. And so I know Chris since 2013, I believe, and I met Danny maybe at a retreat, maybe 2014 or something. But even before that, what I loved were the stories of Chris and all the students and all the people we met, how they turned their life around doing the spiritual work with the release technique. And what I remembered was at the time that I was so hungry to know that this was working. And there were a few video testimonials of students, and Danny's video testimonials was one of them. And he was portraying himself as a trader, and he said, I think his testimony was about finances. And when he was at a retreat, he actually also shared a testimonial about how he actually, through using his consciousness, was able to sell properties that he couldn't sell before that because he just had the wrong consciousness. And so I trust Chris. I have manifested, have had a lot of demonstrations of money and abundance using the release technique. We have a lot of people in our tribe that have actually joined Chris with his financial wealth course, because that seems to be one of the things that seem to be a bit tricky. And that doesn't mean that you can't do it, but it does mean that there are a lot of programs in our mass consciousness that are circling around that is portrayed as knowledge or expertise that we need to get rid of. Yeah. And so actually, Ellen and I really want to thank Danny and Chris for actually informing and educating, a lot of the people who are spiritual seekers about this topic. And I actually want to ask Chris, can you introduce Danny? Because you've actually worked with him. He's been investing money for you, and I believe also your dad. And so there's a lot of, you have a lot of experience with him as a student, but also as a financial advisor. And what were your thoughts when Danny came up with the idea, let's do something about this. Let's actually educate the world on this topic.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So I met Danny, it must have been at least 10 years ago when he came to a class of mine. And recently, we did a live stream where I shared my experience. And Danny was quite an unusual animal to me, because when I went to the class, I saw this guy. He was a bodybuilder. He had like 4%, 4.7% body fat. And during the whole course, and it's a course on consciousness and clearing out your negativity, quieting your mind, I watched this guy just stare at me intently the whole time. and almost like he's trying to penetrate me to see whether or not what I'm teaching is a bunch of BS. And I wasn't sure whether or not he was following along, whether he was uh, getting it and agreeing with it and experiencing it. Um, but on the second day, we do this deep, deep meditation where you get a real experience of beingness, just pure presence in yourself, knowing who you are. It's kind of like getting a taste where all the masters are at. And it was then that I got my first feedback from Danny, where he was confirming his experience of peace and oneness and stillness. And then I knew he was exactly on board. And it was from that that I learned how dedicated Danny is in pursuing anything that he goes after, whether it's bodybuilding or martial arts or investing or consciousness. And I found Danny of the hundreds and hundreds of students, like thousands actually, of students over the years that I've been in contact with, I've had the pleasure to teach, that he's been right at the top of his pursuit for truth and his dedication to doing the work that it takes to achieve this consciousness. So, in that regard, I've always held Danny in a very high esteem for his dedication to truth and to beingness and this work that we're doing. And I always knew that he was a very successful person, from his from what he shared with his businesses. And I had visited him a number of occasions at his home in Austin, and I saw where where he did his trading and his other businesses. Like he had started his own oil field, and I got to see the oil that he collected out of the ground. So it was really really neat to see this glimpse into the world of markets and finances. But I wasn't so interested in that myself at the time. I just thought it was really cool that he was doing that. Now, a few years ago, like you said, I had the privilege to invest with Danny. He allowed me um, to put some funds in with his investments, and he's just a private person, just trading for himself. And uh, and the money that I'd invested with him, I've seen it grow incredibly fast, to say the least. Yeah, and I don't want to give out any percentages or numbers. I don't know, if that would be right, but I would just say that uh, it's it's about the highest I've seen of returns. And I've worked with some really great coaches in business and investing, and that do alternative investments with real estate, with cannabis, and going into these markets where they have a real high return, and also oil and gas. And this is as high, higher than anything that I've seen offered, in these financial circles of opportunities. So I've enjoyed that, and having Danny do the work on my behalf. So when he approached me to say, I want to get this information, this knowledge out of my mind, because, well, I'll let him, share his reasons why. I was, I was very glad for that opportunity. And I jumped on it. I said, yeah, I think we could do an incredible course. And I would love now to learn, what it is that how you see the markets, because I know that he sees them in a very specific way where he could actually plot things, and see with a high degree of certainty what's going to happen way into the future. So, I'll let him share about that. But it was just really exciting to have this opportunity to take this knowledge and put it into a form that all of us can, learn to do this ourselves and take it upon ourselves to be the source of our own abundance in a very practical and real way.
The first question that comes up for me, and I had this question today because when we pre-interviewed Danny has done every course out there, including Dr. Joe. He has the kaleidoscope and everything. So those of you who are Dr. Joe students, we know what that means. He's serious about this, and he has books that about.
Still got it on my desk. Look, when I showed you.
He also has this book, which is like really like a spiritual trading book that probably only geeks can read. It just costs like, I think $5,000 or $3,000. He's attended all the courses, you know, he knows every spiritual teacher, but also all the financial markets and tools and platforms. Danny, from all the tools, all the teachers, why would you work specifically with Chris? Because there's many release technique or Lester Levinson teachers out there. Why did you choose Chris, and why specifically this technique to elevate the game of, you know, consciousness related to abundance and money in the financial markets?
So as you say, I've literally been through all of the Joe Dispenza stuff, Bob Proctor, Psych K, release technique, EFT, and variations thereof, Ho'oponopono. I mean, literally, we can go on. We discussed all this the other day. And really, one of the things that they're all pointing to the same thing. It's a bit like if you listen to Jesus or the Buddha or any of the masters, they're all pointing you in the same direction, but you're just hearing it from a different place. And as a result, certain things I find impact you in certain ways. Or you might, it's like you can hear something from a different person and it could be the same thing, but you're going to get a different take on it just because it's put out in a different way. So I met Chris on just a weekend course. It was 2010 because my son wasn't that old, so I remember it was then. And I had great success trading, and I'd done a lot of stuff up until that point. But the week prior, I was coaching soccer at the time. I mean, because a lot of the time I'd be done by 8:30 in the morning and wanted something else to do with my days. So I was coaching the soccer team at the time, under 11s, and we went into a tournament, and it was in Houston. I'm currently in Austin, and the parents just made it a hellish weekend, to the point that when I came back the following week, my analysis was completely correct, and yet I had a losing week, which for me, I don't say it as unacceptable as an egotistical, but it's just based on my ability. I mean, you can have losing trades here and there, but it just was the application, because I was correct completely on my analysis. But what was really evident at that time was the need to be able to actually bring up what was in front of me and change that. So I didn't really have much knowledge about the release technique, other than it was literally, as luck would have it, funnily enough, that following weekend, and it was only about 10 miles from my house. So I did that weekend, and the following month I earned 4 times. Yeah, I quadrupled my earnings in that following month, which obviously then meant that I stopped releasing. I mean, why would you continue? You don't. So, and again, all of these things are just, as you probably all know, you get the success or increased success, and you veer off and veer away. But bit by bit over time, you start to realize, hang on a minute, I was most successful here. I applied this combination thereof. So in that period as well, I did a lot of the release technique. I went to Lake Tahoe, Camp Allen, where I think I met you, Angelique. And over that time, I got to know Chris really well, and his dad. And it's been such as the knowledge that I've accumulated over this 30 years of passionate pursuit, or 36 years of passionate pursuit in the market, and just the love of it, that I have a 10 and a 7-year-old I have a 10-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl, and I owe it to myself to basically to create a legacy of my knowledge that's I don't see as in any other one place. But what was apparent to me every time I'd sat down to do that for the last year, I start in the rocket science bit because I don't know what somebody else doesn't know. So I just then imagined my children picking this up or whatever in 5 years' time and just not knowing where the starting point was. And it played on me for a little while. And then I thought to myself, okay, the best way for me to do that, because there's stuff that's locked away in my subconscious that, similar to the other day when we spoke, you asked me a question and all of a sudden it just comes pouring out. So the ability to be able to create a structure and get feedback then from people and allow a course to actually evolve within a structure of what I know needs to be taught as well. It made sense to me then I wanted to be in front of people who recognize that the external is created internally first. So this was the primary place that I felt. I mean, with my relationship with Chris, I mean, literally, I mentioned it to Chris. There was no convincing. There was nothing that needed to be done. He's like, absolutely, yeah, we'll do this straight away. I mean, such was and just because of how I am and how I act in the markets, when I do something, I want to do it yesterday. So because otherwise my mind gets turned off away from the thing itself. So it was just a perfect combination. And equally, I didn't want to be convincing people of what the most important part of this is, because there's thousands of trading courses out there. And yet there's not that many successful traders who take those courses. And that comes down to all of the stuff that's not covered and the stuff that we're going to be covering in this course, which is nowhere else. And the stuff that I've bit by bit taken parts of, applied to myself, had massive breakthroughs from, taken again. But what I didn't want to be doing was convincing people, because that defeated the purpose. So coming to people who are already aware, or in actual fact, I do manifest my own reality. My consciousness is directly responsible for how much wealth I can bring in, how much abundance in my relationships and so forth. So it was just a perfect synergistic mix for me to say to Chris about doing something.
And Chris, I know that the course is consisting of two parts. And could you maybe Danny can also answer this, or both of you answer it, is like, you know, what are the main money programs or trading financial market programs that people have, apart from the very like, the ones that we all know, which is money is the root of all blah, 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 blah. I mean, we go much deeper, I believe, because I think, you know, when we watch your videos, we all have had certain things happen to us with business, success, or money. But then there's also this whole thing about, oh, maybe I'm not a trader. That's specifically for, like, you know, people who have done economics, blah, blah. We can't go as deep as we can go, but what are we going to cover in the two parts of the courses that you really are the master of in terms of guiding us?
So again, and I know this just from experience, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on trading courses when I left the futures exchange to then go and trade on the screens, because it was completely different. And not one of them, you'll get, I mean, I can reflect you to my bookshelf over there, and I showed you the other day, and I've got hundreds. I mean, I've literally read everything that's out there. You get trading psychologists or you get trading educators, and equally, you don't get, it's trading psychologists that will highlight something so that you know it's there. But again, what good is that to me? I want to know it's there and then it never be a factor again. So I mentioned to you when I hit a glass ceiling, and it was five. The monetary figure is irrelevant, but it was $5,000 a day. I couldn't get past. I'd be up 7,000, finish up 5. I'd be up 8,000, I'd finish up 5. I'd be down, I'd finish up 5. This went on for weeks. And that was when I ran through, I wrote out, I can't make any more than $5,000 a day because whatever came up. And then about the third or fourth one, I can't make more than $5,000 a day because my family have worked their fingers to the bone and it would be immoral to do that in 30 minutes, was the answer that came up. So instantly, once that did, I was like, wow, I didn't even know that was there. I let that go, and the next day I made twice as much, and I never looked back since. The important aspect wasn't the monetary part, it was the fact there was a glass ceiling there, clearly, which is a limitation. So it was irrelevant, it's $50 or $50,000. It was the fact that it was a limitation that somewhere along the line I'd buried that deep, that I didn't want to be disliked by my family, disowned, unloved, feel worthy enough, and all of the things that come from a releasing standpoint. And the critical thing with the markets especially, trading will bring you face to face with every insecurity that you've got in relation to money, but also in relation to your perception of yourself, your perception of yourself with others. So the critical aspect of starting off with a clean slate, whereby we'll identify what your rate is at the moment, what your earning capacity is, what your glass ceiling is, why. Pull that out, start going into that, relate that to how that relates to the market at different points. Clearing that groundwork from the start is imperative, because from there, everything is done with a fully open mind, you're not moving away from value. So many trading systems and so many things that people gravitate towards are just to actually fulfill that current need in them to avoid a loss or whatever. So most people will look and say, oh, this trading system wins 95% of the time. Does it make money? Well, no, but I'll be right 95% of the time. Well, why is that important? Well, because then I won't feel like a failure. Well, what happens if you feel like a failure? See, that's never taken on further. And this is the reason why a lot of engineers just can't make it in the trading arena, because it's very black or white in that sense, yes or no answers, which have to be taken away. And it's not to say they can't, but again, these need to be taken levels deeper and deeper, and that is the critical aspect of what needs to be encompassed in an overall understanding of not just the market, but how value is determined in any way, shape or form. Value of ourselves, value of your time. I'm not sure if you saw the call before, but I said to somebody, well, what's your rate? Or if I ask somebody, what point does it cost you to do something yourself? If you earn $500 an hour and you're doing your own washing and you hate doing your washing, I mean, the only reason I realized that was because I traded from home for so long. I used to make a mess. I'd spend an hour a day cleaning up after myself. And one week I was like, this cost me 20 grand to clean my own house this week. Probably could get somebody to do it for a bit less than that. And it's when you start actually thinking, oh yeah, because such is the modern day, whereby we've got so many things going like that. There's so many distractions that we have to make snap decisions. But you do the same things that you did yesterday. Well, why did you do them yesterday? Well, because you did them the day before. The whole point of obviously releasing and all of the Joe Dispenza stuff, everything is to get you back to that place of discernment, but equally to that place of limitlessness and being able to clear all the clutter that's come with it, a lot of which isn't even ours. I mean, I've had just profound recognitions of stuff that most of it I've picked up from other people growing up. So the necessity to get to that point where we're working from a clean slate to begin with it's just absolutely critical in terms of creating that freedom, creating that lifestyle, because it's all your internal value of it as well. Because the money itself isn't going to give you that sense of freedom or financial freedom. And I can assure you of that, because I've had, prior to really getting on the path, I had some ridiculously big P&L days. I was unhappy at the end of the day. I was still fearing that I'd miss another move in the market that night, all of those things. So it's clear to me that they weren't the answer. So when you then start, well, why do I do this? Worthiness and so forth. And we clear all that away to begin with, the process then just goes so much smoother.
All right. Thank you, Danny. So is money affected by our consciousness? And if so, why is this so? And how does it work?
Well, everything's affected by consciousness. I mean, everything is consciousness. Yes, everything's energy, consciousness about anything. And in that sense, again, I'm a great believer in our external is a reflection of our internal. So our consciousness about anything becomes our actual experience of it. And the collective consciousness about money is what's reflected in the markets. It's what is reflected in charts. So therefore, by understanding your own consciousness and by bringing up things that might be impacting that, you're able to then see with clarity how other market participants and why markets move as they do, where people are in fear, where people are in greed, and various aspects like that that are applicable to how value is derived. But equally, it comes down with Bruce Lipton, the biology of belief. If you believe that you're not a millionaire just because you've got the money, you're a millionaire, so the money turns up to reflect the fact that you're a millionaire. This is why you could take somebody's money away and they get it back again. You get somebody who wins the lottery, we all know they've not got the money consciousness of a millionaire or a billionaire, whatever it is. So the law states, otherwise we wouldn't be doing any of the increasing our consciousness by meditation, by releasing or anything. The law states that as within, so without. So if the external is more than our internal can handle because we don't feel worthy, or we'll find a way to give it away. And similarly, if you are valuing yourself as fully abundant, the external has to reflect that. You treat yourself differently, you treat others differently, your perception of the world is different. So therefore, money is just a reflection of that. Money is just a reflection of the energy and the energy of abundance that is determined by us, basically.
And if I can jump in too. One of the things that makes this releasing work so special is, like Danny said, all of these teachers, they all say the same thing. You know, that everything is our consciousness, everything is our picture. But this work, it's based off of Lester Levinson, who's a true master. He kept everything simple and very practical and clear. So when you look at the mind, we can get really in depth with how the mind is formed, different states of consciousness, all of this. But simply, what is the mind? It's just a sound in your head. A voice is talking to you. Who gave it to you? Your parents? God? It's your voice, isn't it? You put it in there. And when you start looking at it in a very simple way, all the mind is just a recording and playback machine. It records all of your experiences and it plays it back to you consciously and subconsciously. So, you know, Danny, he gave a specific example about how he saw a particular thought that making a lot of money in 30 minutes would be immoral when others have to work so hard at it. And it's not like you have to play Dr. Phil. It's just recognizing that your mind's just giving you a bunch of information. Now, the simplest thing you do if you want to get clear and know what the truth is not understand the mind, not to tame the mind or figure out what all those programs are about. It's just to empty the mind, clear it out. And when you do that, then you see for yourself firsthand that the mind was your creation all along to begin with. And everything that you see in the world is also your creation. And most of us, we have a conviction that it isn't. The world is something out there. And all these things are happening to us. We create this separation. And we make ourselves a victim to the world. But with this process, very quickly, by doing these exercises, you get the negativity out of the way, you get your mind quiet, you see who you are. You see that everything that's going on out there was your decision. You made it all up. And when you see that, then you're in complete charge. So everything is talking about the collective consciousness, you can take responsibility for it. You understand it. And in a very nice way, you just get that thing harmonious. And you could see all of these factors that are coming together that make the world operate the way that it does, and which is particularly true in the financial markets. Just see it, and you're a master of it. I don't know if I could explain it more clearly than that. But the thing about this method, this tool that we use to clear ourselves out, is that it's experiential. So you just do it, you experience it, you see the truth of it, you see who you are, and then you know.
In the sales copy of this event that we asked Chris to write, because literally I didn't know what to write, because this was like a little bit step further beyond than where I am right now. One of the paragraphs says, we are the source of everything. And of course we know that. We understand, all of us understand that. But then we are at the source of the financial markets and of the movements, and we can actually predict the markets. Can you please explain how we're going to, if anybody's interested in that, how this course will help them? So I believe that this first 6 weeks is going to going into our programs and clearing our mind and all our onboarding programs, etc., which is more the spiritual work. And then after that, after Christmas time, January starts, there's 6 weeks where we're going to learn the basics of trading. And I've heard actually, because I have never been on a trading course, the less I know, the better it is. So that sounded like a really good thing, because I don't have to unlearn anything. But what is actually, what is this thing about we are at the source of the financial markets and we can actually predict it? So maybe is there something that you can share that will help us get the insight of why this course is so different from all the other trading courses out there?
So the markets are just energy, and the major part of what I've spent the last 15 to 20 years doing is determining how to scale a chart correctly. Literally meaning you drop a pebble into a pond, it's going to create ripples. Now I showed you both charts that I'd drawn, hand drawn, the British pound that went back years that did projections out. Before
Brexit, before we even knew about Brexit.
So that was in 1982, and it predicted the Brexit lows in time and price, if you recall. And I sent you charts the other day of my trade last week in crude before it sold off 17%. And Chris will attest to this, because somebody sent an email and said, oh, can you just give us some current trade examples? So I literally gave it to him on that day. I said, this is a trade that I've just taken, which was a sell. I marked the bar, and then I followed up with it, and I sent you both. And as I say, there was a 17% move that followed that. So the makeup of the market and makeup of the universe is mathematically precise. If it wasn't, everything would collapse. I mean, that's a fact. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the Fibonacci sequence. You wouldn't be able to actually get to a point of meditation. You wouldn't be able to get to a point of nowhere, no time, no space. There has to be an underlying structure, and there is. Otherwise, the mathematical precision with which these bars are identified retrospectively and then project themselves into the future, it will be an impossibility. We'll be looking at billions, a billion to one for that to be able to be determined ahead of time. And I mean, I've given Chris multiple examples. Cheekily, someone even asked again for another one today after I gave him that last week, and I had to just say I was happy to do that last week, but this is a lot more valuable than what I'm actually charging for this course. So no. But getting back to a point you made, and this is very, very important, because I really think this is a distinction that I have incorrectly made in the past, but making a distinction was massive. You said about the spiritual as if it's any different to the application. And I think this is where people will meditate on abundance and they'll do whatever else. And I know Joe Dispenza says this. He said you get to that point of abundance, but then you can't wake up and go, oh, I'm going to my job now for $20 an hour and whatever else. The internal creates the external. There's no, it's all part of the same hologram in the sense of there is no spiritual, there just is the all. Subsequently, to clear the path and then project that tangibly by being in tune with the market. I've mentioned to you both before, so much of what I've got or became parts to, I trained, I mean, I've mentored with so many different people and taken the best bits of each different thing. I trained with a fellow, Michael Jenkins in New York, who put me onto a lot of the angle stuff that I use. But since that point, I've meditated. I mean, meditations, I mean, I now have a room that I go to in my meditations where I literally have everything available from a trading standpoint. It's like a science lab. I think I told you both, I've walked down price bars and then I've just come up with different applications in the market. So again, the categorization of spiritual and then this, it's the encompassing aspect of it all being the same thing. If you watch any great sportsmen, like the people that I'm talking about, the top, there's a spirituality about what they do because they're in you have to be in that flow to be able to produce those kind of results. So you can have gifts, you can have talents, but there still needs to be a congruent application of mind and body for that to come into one embodiment, shall we say. And so what I've done in the markets are time and price, and I'll demonstrate this to everyone who comes in the course. And once you recognize that the answer to a turn in the future or the price, it's the same as if I said to you, I'll put $1 million somewhere in your house. You just got to find it. You're not just going to look under the sofa and, oh, it's not there. That's it, I'm done. You're going to keep looking, you're going to keep refining. And once you get that, the empowerment that comes with that, as opposed to being reliant on what somebody at Charles Schwab tells you when you take your 401k there or whatever, or any other expert. It's the empowerment that everyone says that they're after when they start on the spiritual path. Again, I hate to use that term because it's just the path back to our full enlightenment as limitless people, like limitless beings, really. But yeah, as I say, I see the market in a different way because of that, but in a way that's actually mathematically precise.
Alan has a very interesting question about maths because Alan and I decided that we want to be on this course because, and this is the thing, Alan has a very great question about that we wrote down because we really wanted to ask the questions that will enable people to make a decision whether or not this course is right for them. Because I think a lot of people have interested, but a lot of people have a lot of doubts as well about whether they will be capable enough, intelligent enough, mathematical enough, blah, blah, blah. So let's share our question, Alan.
Yeah, it's simple. So if you think I'm super bad at numbers, it was my least favorite subject at school. If I even think of numbers, I go crazy. Will we be able to understand the graphs and create our own graphs and all that stuff when we do the course?
Absolutely, virtually everything I do is visual in terms of tools that are already on a chart. If you can understand that if you buy something and when it goes up you make money, or if you sell it and when it goes down you make money. If you can divide 90 degrees in two and then and just type 45 on a screen and draw a circle onto a chart. Somebody who I actually responded to with those charts the other day, Chris and I were talking about this because it made no sense to me, because I normally wouldn't answer somebody on it because he asked me all of these questions and he's done all of these different courses, and I sent him that trade that was I mean, literally the market went from there to there. I sent it to you both. And then he came back and he was like, this is fantastic, such and such. I'm going to go and do it on my own. And the only thing I could think was the charts that I sent him looked very simple in terms of how I'd drawn them. But as I take a step back, I think that simplicity has just come from the amount of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours I've spent to get to that point of being able to identify how to scale a chart and bringing it to that. So the benefit to anyone coming on the course is I'm not taking you through all the laborious things I had to do to get to that point of simplicity. We're going to go straight to that from a clear mind space. So listen, we all have to deal with money. We all have finances. As long as you're able to live in society with any comprehension about how you get through your day-to-day life, the mathematics involved, this isn't quantum trading, this isn't algorithms, this is nothing of the sort. This is just identification of where something's going to be turning, where value is skewed and so forth. But as I say, that's a visual representation.
Cool. And so there's a weekly commitment, of course, and the second part of the course is where we're going to learn the trading skills.
And then, sorry, just let me interrupt. So I meant to say this a bit earlier. So I will be incorporating chart stuff in the first 6 weeks as well. It's not just going to be the second 6 weeks where we start that part, because a lot of the releasing is going to be on certain chart formations and why things are happening, how that relates to you. How would you feel if the market was going up like that? What would it cause you to do without knowing what happened next? And then how would you feel, so that we can clear those parts so that when we come to the next bit. So yes, the actual application part per se is going to be predominantly focused in the second 6 weeks, but more or less from the outset, you're going to get familiarity with certain homework assignments. Like, I need you to go and look at candlesticks, and then you're going to have to give me 2 or 3 questions in relation to that I will then answer in the class, so that your own understanding can move forward. So bit by bit, the things you're releasing on are still going to be applicable to the stuff that we do in the second half.
Great.
So sorry to interrupt. I meant to say that earlier.
Yeah, no worries. I hadn't understood that yet, so that's good. And then after the course, so we learn all these amazing skills, and we're spending hours a week doing this, or those 6 weeks. Then after that, how do we continue on the work and remain on our path of becoming more skilled at it without
you're completely on your own at that point. You get taken up to the top of the mountain. I just say, right, that's it. That's I'm off. And one of the things I said to you both the other day, I've been to Tony Robbins Master University. I've done literally, I mean, we went through all these. There's not one thing that I haven't done. And some things have a follow-up, but that, what do they call it, a sunburn effect, when you come back from a conference or a course or whatever, and you're all raring to go. And then, but especially if it's very information filled, and especially when it's something that involves money or so forth, there needs to be that consistent, even if you don't end up utilizing it, just it's like a spotter when you're at the gym. If you want to do a heavier weight, just having somebody there gives you more confidence to move forward. I'm actually the opposite on that last example. I don't like anyone being there, because it just means I have to actually get it. But the point being, we're going to have ongoing support. I'm going to be providing, there'll be private logins for people where the next lot of turns in different markets that I see, I'll put on there so that people can compare. We'll have ongoing follow-up coaching. We're going to do 4 hours one-on-one with me. It could be split up into 30-minute segments, and then ongoing from there. And then if there's like stock portfolios, I mean, some people might just want to look at stocks that they currently own in their 401k, or it could be Bitcoin, it could be any, I mean, every tradable instrument, stocks, futures, are a representation of the mass consciousness of the people that are buying and selling them. That's basically all a price chart is. So that, in answer to your question, there's going to be, I'm going to make sure that there's that ongoing support to fully, because the initial part is just the start, and the point to which you grab that and the point to which you then start moving on out is going to be in direct proportion to how confident you are. And that confidence for some people is going to be different to others, but knowing that I'll be there as a resource for that support ongoing was, again, an imperative thing from the start on this.
So I know a lot of people will be asking how much does it cost, and so basically, you know, I think it's so I think it would be best to actually compare it to a trading course. So the cost of the course and what we actually get for it, which is, I think, not expensive at all, because especially if you look at, you know, the mindset component of how much garbage you'll be cleaning up, it's really like a bargain. But for some people, it might still be a stretch. But there's also a specific payment plan. And the second thing is, how much money do people need to play with once they are using the application tools of financial trading? So what would your advice be? So could you please enlighten us on that?
So the course is $4,995, which if
12 weeks and private mentoring by you, right?
Yeah, and let me give you a perspective on this. If I were to actually be charging what it was worth, you're not getting 2 hours of my time for that. And that's not me, that's just a fact. I mean, I've spent hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to this point, just in the trading part, not including everything else I've mentioned that incorporates. I mean, in this as well, I'm going to be going into people's sleep routines, your circadian rhythms, your emotional energy that you use, when's the best. So if you're making 400 decisions before you make your first trade, and you're like this, these different components, like an aura ring that I wear that monitors my sleep, so the best times, all of these different components that really formulate the all-encompassing part of it. So on that front, the reason it's so low is because it was a simultaneous benefit for me. I am not doing this for the monetary part of it. Obviously, I wasn't going to do it for nothing. I mean, yeah, it's a mutual benefit. As I said, it's going to be eliciting a lot of information from me subconsciously by the fact that people having no understanding is beneficial for me from the start, because then people will ask questions, because more often than not, people are going to be asking the same questions. And it's going to formulate itself from that standpoint. But in comparison, this in a nutshell highlights the whole perception of value, because people wouldn't think twice about paying that to go on vacation, or for one of their eight TV in their house,
or you know, some crazy, like you know, crazy car.
In 2008, when people who were about to retire, 401ks were worth a fifth of their value, because they had no comprehension of how to read a market, whereby my best year was 2008. So to empower people, we're in the most dramatic, turbulent time in the history of the world, and that volatility is going to just get more and more and more pronounced. I mean, the fallout from everything that's going on is going to impact everybody in terms of markets, house prices, people's jobs, everything. It's just the actual net effect of everything that's gone on. So to empower yourself to know how to read the market, and I say the market because, let me just clarify this isn't 30 years ago where the only people impacted by markets were those that were directly involved. If you own a house, if you're in a job, if you use money, literally everyone on the face of the earth now, so we're such a small knit community in terms of a worldwide financial system, that it's whether or not you want to empower yourself, or you give up your power to somebody else, and the ability to be able to take control of your finances. I mean, that's a massive, massive part of people's lives. So again, everything's relative. If you think it's too expensive, obviously the perception of value that's not been created enough in you, or you can't see how that benefits you in yourself. But when I tell you, probably a 10 times less than it should be if I was to be coming with a finished article to somebody who was already a trader. Then you can see how it's that it's a mutual benefit from that perspective. And also breaking it down into the time and the encompassing aspect of what I'm going to be bringing forward, which is going to be everything that I've learned over this, or my lifetime, really. I'm actually thinking now you've asked the question of upping the price. I've determined all the value I've just said to you. I'm going to take it up in the next 20 minutes, I think.
Well, we already signed up for the lower price. Sign up now, everybody. So how much money should people play with? I mean, because I know about other online trading courses, people play with, you know, like fake accounts and things like that. What would you advise would be the minimum that people should
First of all, we won't be playing with anything when it comes to money. You can enjoy it, but we're not going to play with it. Because that in and of itself, and I said this to you before, it's not, people got caught up on me saying, oh, 20 grand or it's more about your relationship to what you are going to be trading. Now, there just logistically, now you're able to trade with, say, $5,000 because there's instruments you can trade in, and then you've still got the impact of actually using real money and so forth and being able to learn. But the whole point of the actual releasing part, as well as everything else, is the non-attachment to whether you're trading with $1 million or 5,000. The learning is still going to be the same. And this is the brilliant thing about, once you've learned this, if you open up one store and you think, oh, I need to double my earnings, you've got to open up 2 stores, employ more people. Trading is exponentially just taken up. You're just trading more contracts. And that's why the consistent releasing and the consistent letting go of more and more limitations comes into play. So from a minimum logistics standpoint, and to give people the best chance, I mean, the very minimum would be 5,000 from a trade standpoint. I'd be reluctant if people are going to come with that, because, well, I say reluctant again, it's going to be coming down to how open people are to making sure that they're completely unattached to that. Because with the application of what we'll be learning, the chance to compound that and more so is actually who you'll become in the learning part of that, to then take that forward into, as I say, any other applications that you have from a financial standpoint. So logistically, the absolute minimum would be 5,000, but it's going to be more applicable as to what your relationship is to what it is you feel like you can bring to the table.
So maybe Chris could also answer this. Who is this not for, this course? Because I know we've spoken very often about, you know, the Lester Levenson's technique is for people with a work ethic. And the work is not about, you know, we're not talking about shoveling stones or, you know, standing behind a counter and trying to sell toilet paper or cannabis.
Can I just answer that as well? I intentionally wanted to limit this to 20 participants. And the reason being, again, I've zero interest in working with people who are not willing to fully commit, fully experience, fully embrace. This is about creating an energy within the group that I think will benefit everyone exponentially. So it really is, this isn't whether or not somebody it's more about wanting to work with people as opposed to the other way around. So if somebody's looking at this as, because if the reason somebody's doing this is to make money, that's the wrong. Would they make money? Yeah, but that's everything that's contradictory to what we've already discussed. The money will be the byproduct of the changes that come about and the tools that are learned. So I'll let Chris elaborate further, but I just wanted to make that point. I'm not here selling anyone to get on the course. It's if it rings true to you, if it does, then it's a fit. If it doesn't, then again, it's not.
Yeah. I'm going to take this out of my ear. I have to call on the second line in order to hear you. So when I talk, I hear an echo. So I'm just going to talk without hearing if you jump in. So wave if you want me to stop. Who this course really isn't for is somebody that's looking to get rich quick, looking for something for nothing. And this is true not only for this course, it's true, this has been my attitude with all of the releasing courses, because we hear from various masters, and in particular from Lester Levinson, about being able to manifest wealth, being able to do something that he called the butt system, where you just sit on your butt and release, and everything just falls right into your lap. And this is very attractive to a lot of people that would rather not lift a finger to work, or would rather not get into courageousness and step forward, despite what the mind says, even if it's screaming at you to not go there, but have the courage to get bigger than your ego and take that step anyway. Rather, some people have an attitude of wanting someone to do it for them. And a lot of people, well, they do this in these spiritual circles. They're wanting some guru to come around and just tap them on the head and set them free. And this is why a lot of people will tend to jump from course to course. They go and they try this method for a while, it works for them, but they're expecting someone to do it for them. And then, okay, they're not doing it for me, I'm going to go to this other teacher, and then I'm going to go here and go there. The people that have really succeeded and have gone far using this work, following Lester's teachings, are the ones that really take responsibility and have a healthy work ethic of saying, I'm going to take responsibility for myself and do whatever it takes to get there, to do whatever it takes to get rid of all of my negativity, to clean up my consciousness, get over my fears, get over my ego, and quiet that. And I don't care what I have to look at. I don't care if it's painful. Guess what? It's just a feeling. I'm going to let it go. So typically, I found that a lot of people that are business people, that are big doers themselves, are the ones that do more with this work, because they have that sense of, I value my own investment into myself and putting that work in and doing what it takes, rather than, waiting for someone else to do it for me. So really, that's more the attitude. And I think that's why, we are such a good match, when we collaborate together, because I know all the people that you work with in your community there have this work ethic, and those that have been participating in the releasing courses have done incredibly well. They've just jumped in and have done the work and have seen amazing results from it. So yeah, that's really what it takes.
So I know that Danny, I know that the trading courses that you can normally attend to learn trading, how long do they normally take, and because this will take around 6 weeks, how much can we learn in 6 weeks? I mean, I have no clue. I know that people go to these weekend courses.
To give you an example, I did a course in Florida, 2011, 2012, which I paid $5,000 for 3 nights.
Yeah, that's what I mean. A weekend, a long weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
It didn't give me, at that point, for me, it was just whether or not I picked something. And every time I did something else, it was taking something else to make my own thing. But perspective wise, again, it's also, you've got to also look at the question in terms of context. You can buy a car, you can buy a Fiat, or you can buy a Ferrari. It's like saying, well, one was 400 grand and the other one was 15 grand. Well, yeah, one's a Fiat, one's a Ferrari. And again, I keep coming back to the fact that the holistic aspect of what's needed to actually be just not even just successful as a trader, but being able to determine where value is inconsistent. A lot of people get caught up in the perception of value that's created in them by other people, by the media, by other, and that's then becomes the mass consciousness. You walk into Macy's, or I do at Christmas, and smell a bottle of perfume from my wife, and it's one's $49 and the other one's $159. Immediately, you've already made your decision, everyone on this call, which one's better already. That's not necessarily the case. But again, it's perception of value, and that is how these things are perceived. So you can go out and you can say, look, there's trading courses there that are $300. Good, go and do them then. Why is somebody charging you $300 for their trading course? I've got no intention of teaching this again. I'm not intending to become a market educator. I will have a body of work at the end of it that if I chose to at some point, I could, or refine, but that's not my intention. And generally, when you look on a website, if the website's fantastic and they're going to teach you to trade, you've got to have a little, the best traders are the websites where they need to get a new website. Because they're not after taking you on a marketing perspective and got click-through funnels up, seeing 400,000 people a day going through and emails going out and so forth. I mean, the last call we did, the reason I'm on my wife's computer is because my sound wasn't correct, so I had to go and get headphones, and it took me 10 minutes. That just emphasizes I'm not here to try and create a clear marketing thing. I mean, the course itself will be obviously professional and everything and done to that sense, but you have to take a step back and think, well, what is the approach here? Where's this coming from, you know?
It's content over polish.
Yep.
Yeah. Can we ask some questions from, we have 2 questions, if that's okay with you guys? Yeah. So Adi's question is, do you have any insight on QFS, which is maybe you already know, quantum financial system? She keeps hearing reference of this reset once the banking corruption is cleared.
So I'm aware of it simply because I stay aware of things, but this then gets back into that disempowered aspect of stuff. That's something that's out of my control. I feel like inevitably there has to be a banking reset globally because it's just all a house of cards in terms of currencies, and fiat currency is going to be taken. I mean, we'll probably move to a cashless society, and I don't want to get into the whole aspect of that. But I mean, I was in Bitcoin at $200 because I realized what value it held, and it cleared the marketplace once again, like it used to be 400 years ago, before the banks took larger and larger parts of that transaction. So the banking system itself is not, it is directly impactful for my life and your lives, but it's not something that we can directly impact. So therefore, if my attention has to be somewhere, it's got to be on what I can actually specifically see that's going on in the market, because these things don't happen overnight. They can't happen overnight. And that's one of the brilliant things about being able to look at gold, look at the dollar, look at how the money's flowing from one to the next to the next. So there's only a certain amount of money that can move through the markets in any given day. That's why certain commodities move on certain days, certain currencies move, because it takes a certain amount of money to move every market, and that it's just not in the system itself. So having an understanding of that allows you to be a lot more discerning when you start hearing information about resets and different things like that. Just logically, I feel like there has to be. I mean, you're at zero, you're at negative interest rates. I mean, since when's that been a good thing? Paying the bank to put your money in the block. Might as well put it under your mattress. Who's bought into that? But what happens is, and again, this comes back to that mass consciousness, because it's been out there, it becomes familiar. People think, oh, that makes sense. Do you want? I'll pay you to take my money. I mean, where are we? It's so. Yes, it's something I've heard of, but it doesn't warrant or justify my attention being there until it becomes clear that maybe it's imminent, and then there's an action that needs to be taken. But that, in and of itself, again, like a market crash just can't happen without there being certain things on a chart leading up to it. I've used this example many times, but if I chop my tree down out the front to a toothpick, and then Chris comes along and goes, "Oh, Chris blew the tree over." No, it was a toothpick. I chopped it down to a toothpick. But what happens is people attribute something to something else. So that often comes with people just clutching at different things that I feel that they're looking for as a diversion, as a distraction, of which we have many in the modern day with Instagram, Twitter, and every other thing, which is why we're all looking to go more internal than ever before. I hope that answered the question as I see it.
So my question now is like, would you say, because the way that you answered our question about mathematical capability is like, if you can do 90 divided by 2 is 45, and you actually could do this course. And then Chris also answered, in order for the consciousness to work, you have to really have this kind of work ethic, and it's really not about the money, it's about actually becoming an infinite being. When would you say does a person know that this is for them? Would it be intuition, or would it be like, wow, this is the manifestation I've been waiting for, I've been manifesting abundance, and this is it, I need to work with Danny just like I materialized Danny? How do we know this is our course?
Well, you asked me the other day, I mean, I'm passionate about trading. I see anything about price discovery, why prices get to what they do since I've been a kid. I mean, I bought my first shares at 8. But that's not to say I also have, I want to make a massive impact on globally, on the environment, on what we're doing to the planet. There's no point making money if we're not all around to see it. I don't want my children having to wear masks because there's no air around, because we've chopped all the trees down and there's no animals left to protect and everything else. So I've been lucky in that I've been given a gift, I believe, in the market, but my vision is bigger. It facilitates me being able to do something on that grander scale. So if there's anyone on the call that thinks, you know what, I actually want to do something similar, or I want to do this, probably not going to get there in my current job or whatever I'm doing, because it just doesn't facilitate that. What the market, one of the massive appeals to it, there's no upside cap on what you can do. And you learn a skill, and you learn an application that can be scaled to whatever level you want. At the point when you can trade too big a size in the market, then fair play to you, because you're going to own a country at that point. So it's more about, if it's not necessarily trading that, or the markets that are making you go, oh yeah. Well, okay, but I'm not against that. But if my vision is here, and that's a facilitation to get to that point, then that's probably the thing I would look at to consider.
Okay, that's a good point. Because I know in a lot of businesses that give you time and financial freedom, people actually have a bigger goal. Like they want to set up an orphanage, or they want to set up this, thing that saves animals and things like that. But there has to be some kind of vehicle to facilitate the funding of that, apart from just, becoming a charity or something. Yeah. Are there people here that might have questions? Do you have any questions? I am not really sure I can think of any more, because we really thought about it.
One question is, how many hours a day is the course?
23.5 hours a day you've got to spend. You only have half an hour's sleep. You have to be in the office and at your desk, and you have a little packet of food, and that's it.
And 5 screens.
He's going to call you and wake you up.
How long do you spend releasing? How long do you spend meditating? Well, it depends. How enlightened do you want to get? How well do you want to do? How good do you want to be? If I want to play soccer, if I want to do martial arts, if I want to spend 3 hours a week, I'm not going to be as good as if I spent 6 hours a week, or 8 hours a week, or 10 hours a week. So, again, that's going to be based upon your level of competency and what you want to actually get out of it. I can't determine that for you. Once the homework's given, you can delve into this. I've spent thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours in front of the charts, but that's me.
But I think practically, to answer your question about the course itself, we're going to be doing our live sessions on Mondays and Fridays, which will be European time. It'll be from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Central European time. which was 12:30 to 2:30 U.S. Eastern time. So that's the live class commitment to showing up and participating. However, if you don't make it to a live class, all the sessions will be recorded, and you'll have access to them through a membership site that you can log into. And you'll have your own library of these recordings from our live classes. Plus, in addition to that, in between those sessions, both myself and Danny will be filming additional content. I'll be releasing content, doing the inner work with you through some guided sessions, digging into the subconscious, bringing up these programs and releasing them, showing you how to use these tools. And Danny will also be giving supplemental teaching videos. And, so that's just the practical time commitment of the course itself. Now, there will be a homework load, both for releasing and also for your own studies and research, because this course will take you from zero, not knowing anything about the markets. So there will be a bit of a learning curve, and we're not going to, spend all the time, with some of the mundane stuff. We'll give you homework assignments for you to learn certain things about, doing the work in the markets, and Danny will guide you for that. So there'll be some self-study involved in it. And then when it gets to the application, like Danny was saying, it's about, what you want to put into it. One of the exciting things, and this also goes back to your earlier question of, how will I know if this is right for me? I think what's really exciting about this is, regardless of your job or your business, which we can see from this year here, how so much of that is impacted by what's going on around us, how parts of the economy are crumbling apart, which is exposing certain people to, either they're affected directly or their clients are affected, which means that they're affected, and these things start, like a domino effect. Having these skills to work in the markets allows you to be flexible, regardless of where your business is, your passion. You can use this to have abundance, regardless of what's going on in the economy, because working in the markets, you can insert yourself wherever the action is. And then the time you put into it, when you look at, when I spend time researching and planning out these moves in advance and putting the time in to trade, you might look at, well, I'm making about $5,000 an hour doing what I'm doing. So if I do this for 5 hours, it's $25,000, just to give you an example off the top of my head. And so you might look at, well, a leverage of time versus return. So then that just, that might inspire you to put more into it, depending on what your goals are.
One key point that I need to make as well is why I do applies on every single time frame. So once you've learned it, it may well be that you have no interest in, you're not going to be sitting in front of a screen during the day. I mean, I don't spend that much time in front of a screen. I do most of my work outside market hours, but I've got charts in gold on the weeklies and the dailies and crude that I haven't had to touch for 3 years. And I've got my next lot of turns. So I just literally come to those when they're due to be traded. It may be that somebody's looking to just look at the market of a week and they're going to trade off the daily chart. Everything still works accordingly, but it's just on a different time frame. So it's also the case that this hasn't got to be in lieu of your current job or whatever else, and it can be adapted to then fit your lifestyle if need be, because you just want to make additional. You see what I mean? That there's multiple different ways it can be applied.
And I think the difference is like when I was trading when I was really young and I had this crazy corporate job and I didn't actually know what I was doing. Literally, I was just like buying funds and selling them. And that was like not knowing anything about consciousness, not understanding markets, just like reading the newspapers and trying to guess what was going on. I mean, I was in stress day in, day out. I think this course is actually taking us away from that, basically being impacted by the market forces, by the psychology of the bigger mass consciousness. This is not just about trading. This is actually about all finances and all our fears around money, if I understand, and how this thing is going to impact all of us at this point in time.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of my best friend in the States, his daughter, known since I was 6, but she was at Ole Miss until last year. She did an intern with me for the year before. She was doing a finance degree, and she said she learned more in the 2 weeks than she had done in her course. Like there was applicable applicational stuff. And then, like, so when you said about price earlier, I mean, I didn't go to college in the States, but I'm aware that people spend 35, 50, 60, I don't know what the rates are, $1,000 a year to go into a 40 grand a year job. Again, I mean, maybe I don't do the same maths as everyone else, but that doesn't really make much sense to me on that front. So in terms of value, again, it's probably under, I mean, it's undercharged in that way, but what it can actually lead to is, again, that internal fulfillment, that internal freedom, whereby you can look in front of a screen and read it the same way you do a book, and know that if you apply consistency, you're going to be ahead.
I have another question from Abby. What about very experienced traders? Will there be pieces that are not relevant to them?
Again, that's I don't see what pieces won't be relevant to them, because one of the things that I've always thought is when I think that I know something, that's generally when I need to actually be listening. As we said earlier, you hear it from somebody else, and all of a sudden that thing you've heard 10 times, or you see it in a different way, all of a sudden it becomes different. Now, you could possibly say there's bits that are not relevant, but again, this isn't a conventional course in the sense of, and I don't even like calling it a course, it's going to be a way of actually embodying your own abundance, really. So, no, I don't see that there will be bits that are not relevant, because there's going to be some facet of whatever part of it that's going to either relate still to your consciousness or some other application that's not, I don't believe, going to have been covered anywhere else. And if it has been, then great, you get it twice.
I just keep getting this picture, Ellen and I, we studied a medical medium. There's this guy, Anthony Williams. He was 4,
I've got his book over there. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep reading his book, and it's really like this guy just like is informed my spirit. And then you have people like Dr. Joe or Lester Levinson. They get downloads all the time. Would you say that you are like, you sort of like started, you have cracked the code in terms of reading the financial markets as if you could see beyond the veil? Is that what you've actually achieved? Is that, I mean, I'm trying to understand, who are we going to be taught by in terms of, when I die in my deathbed, I can say, yeah, I worked with Danny. And actually, in hindsight, this is what he did.
I mean, I've been reluctant at times to actually acknowledge my own prowess, but again, that was something I just had to bring up as a, well, why? You know what I mean? That comes down to that worthiness and so forth. So I can only go on what others say. I mean, I've got testimony on the website from one of my friends I used to, on the landing page, who used to be on the floor, who's now got 9,000 followers on Twitter. And just various other traders where, and I mean, the proof's in the pudding, the charts I sent to you. So it's hard to answer that question from when somebody asks you about yourself. I do feel like I see things when they're not already on the chart. And that's what's enabled me to get to this point of being able to determine this is where I'm drawing something from, this is what I'm expecting. And that's the next step of what I'll be looking to show.
So, and my last question is, because in some way, people believe that we create everything, but you also say mass consciousness is creating the markets. So knowing that we are part of mass consciousness, is this course going to teach us to get out of the mass consciousness so that we can actually see where the markets are moving ahead of time?
Absolutely. If I had one bit of advice to give to my children, if I wasn't going to be around to give it to them, it would be look at what 99% of people are doing and do the opposite. Because most people are not in the shape they want to be in. Most people are not as financially free as they want to be. Most people are not living the lives they want to live. Subsequently, by following the mass consciousness, the results are in the results. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you just let the mass consciousness be as it may.
yes,
See,
I mean, so
what we call the mass,
basically,
just
yeah,
real quick, what we call the mass consciousness is us running on automatic. You know, we're just automatically taking advice from our mind, from these old programs, old recordings. And we're taking advice from the media, from what others say, without any real discernment, discrimination.
Yeah.
And when you look at the mind, you know, there's like three aspects to it. The first aspect is what we call the sensing aspect, like it's hot or it's cold. You know, we sense things. And we have that, and animals have that. The second aspect of the mind is this recording and playback mechanism that I was talking about earlier. The mind just records things and it plays it back to us. Now, we have that and animals have that. So a good example to see how this works is you take a baby elephant and they tie a little rope around its leg and they put a stake in the ground so the elephant can't move. Well, the elephant records into its mind, as long as that rope is around my leg, I can't move, I can't go anywhere. Now, when that elephant grows up and it's like 3 or 4 tons, they still have that same little rope around its leg. But because it recorded in its mind, that rope is around my leg, I can't move, it doesn't even try. So that is something that, you know, that's going on in a mass consciousness sort of way. We're just on automatic. There is no real discrimination or discernment of what is truth, what is reality, and we're just getting swept away by it. This is how most of us just get swept away by our thoughts.
Yes.
And that's really what we're talking about here when we talk about the mass consciousness. Now, an ability that we have here that animals typically don't have, because animals don't have this sense of self like we do, is the ability to step back out of this and see ourselves and see truth. So we can step out of this mass consciousness. It can continue going on automatically, and we can see clearly what's going on. But we, being a beingness, can just sit in our being, sit in presence, sit in the stillness and clarity. And that's where we step into our creative role. And then we see that the rest of it out there, it's part of us, but we just let it go on doing what it's doing. And we are in charge of our life.
So we're not a judgment. We're not saying, ooh, poo-poo, you know, you are in mass consciousness. We just allow everybody to create their reality, but we are just like observing it, and we are just making the decisions because we know that we can, because we can actually see what is going on and how we can participate in it, not as, you know, in a, like, you know, not in a program, but actually awake in the dream.
Yeah, the real discrimination is seeing that in reality, there is nothing going on. It's just like a dream. You know, when you wake up from a dream at night, you see, oh, that was just a dream. It never even happened. And that's the way that we see the world once we awaken. Is we see that it's just a dream. It never really happened. There's really nothing going on out there. Now we can watch the noise, just like we could watch a dream. Sometimes we see a dream and then we get aware, hey, I'm in the dream, right? Haven't you done that? You become aware that you're dreaming while you're still in the dream. And you can see, wait, things aren't going well in this dream. Let's change it. And you can consciously change your dream. You can consciously bounce yourself from London to Paris. You go, oh, no, this is where I am now. This is the dream I like to have. And you're in control of it, right? Yeah, it's just like that.
I think this is so exciting because I think, I mean, in the Dr. Joe community, this, Danny, we 400, 500 testimonials about healing, but only a few about financial abundance. And I think it is because, and I've listened to a few of the last videos of Chris, it's like we're always trying, we still have this perception of we need to figure out how to create financial abundance. And so because of the programming, we often have basically, disqualified ourselves to be good in financial trading, or because we think, oh, you have to be a trader, you have to be a broker, you have to have all this knowledge. But actually, maybe all the programs that they've been, inundated with during their courses is actually not helping them. Because I was actually, when I was failing with the dot-com boom, because I made a lot of money and then I lost it all completely, I had to release on that a lot of all the losses I've made because I didn't know what I was doing. There's a lot of things you can know about financial psychology of the markets and of traders. It's a huge market. But actually, what I think we're going to do here with this course goes beyond that, which is actually becoming, unlimited in terms of really understanding that you do have control about your financial future, and whether it's health or whether it's wealth or whether it's, you can use this as a vehicle to actually see that, you can step back and actually predict mathematically, what the trends are based on proven formulas and proven, movements that you can actually preempt and predict. And that I think is very, very, very exciting, because I think, and I'm sure you read this book, Danny, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We haven't really been given the notion that we should actually financially empower ourselves. We're actually mostly trained to look at, oh, get a job, be a nice employer, like work 40 hours a week and then get this nice pension. And now we see it all falling apart, there is no certainty. So it's very important that at this point in time, people actually start to question what have we been taught at schools, what have we been taught by our parents and by well-meaning financial advisors. And so I think this is really what this course is about, is to really go deep in all the programs that we have about what we believe financial safety is, financial abundance is, how the markets operate, and then to actually work with somebody who has been obsessed, and I would say obsessed, because it's buying your first trade at 8. I don't even know how you did it, Danny, but I think you probably, somebody had to give you an account, or you need.
I bought it from my uncle's account.
From your uncle's account, that's what I mean, because you couldn't open an account. No. So bless your uncle. So, so I think it's really, we've been given a great opportunity to work with somebody like this. And if this appeals to you, Alan and I will be on the course, because we have been on other courses. When I first introduced Alan to the release technique, or Chris's technique, she was like, oh my God, this is like so amazing that you can release things so quickly and really be so clear about what is bugging you, what is like the virus in your head. And, imagine that you could do this for money and abundance, which is like one of the biggest viruses that I is now roaming around and impacts us every day. So yeah, Alan, do you have anything that you would like to, that came to you as an insight as we're talking to Danny and Chris?
No insight. I just think both Chris and Danny are awesome, and I'm so excited for the course. So excited we're both going to be there, and speaking with you is so enlightening. And it's like this sort of really cool vision, what we're going to do, and still a little bit like, oh my God, what are we going to do? But it just seems really cool, and it's just such an appropriate time to. And I know today is election day, so I think I'm like, I wish I already knew what to do, because I feel like I already want to trade. I'm already excited, yeah. So thank you, Danny and Chris.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Is there anything we should have also asked that we didn't ask, Daniel, Chris?
I don't believe so.
We're excited.
We got a good picture.
It starts 5th November, which is a Friday.
9th.
9th?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, that's a Monday.
On a Monday.
Okay, okay. So it starts a week from Monday. Today is Wednesday, Tuesday? Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday, so it starts
Tuesday.
next Monday.
Yeah. So, you know, if you have any questions, you know, you can also contact me. I've worked with Chris, you know, you can do your due diligence, but also feel free to just maybe, you know, ask Chris questions. But I think really $5,000, you know, you can't even buy a normal car with that. You know, I think you can buy like a Smart for Two car, a secondhand one, you know, so $5,000, you can pay 3 installments. And, you know, so it's really a great deal. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. So
Thank you.
we're going to upload the video and we're going to share it through our channels and our mailing list, etc. So, but I really want to thank you for your time, Danny and Chris. And I really, I'm setting the intention that I'll be an amazing financial trader, because this is not the perception I have of myself, but I am going to expand myself to really be a wizard of the markets, because I think that is absolutely possible.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Lots
you.
of love, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye.